Okay guys, today I'm going to show how I built in some redundancy and backups into my web server system. So, let me just show you kind of what's going on over here. I'll just kind of point things out. And then I'll show you a test on it, and I'll show how it can fail over. And then I will also just talk about some other stuff I'm doing with backing up stuff. So, number one is everything's coming through the firewall/router, and this is running pfSense. There's a package for Varnish. I specifically will share my Varnish config one day, and I'll probably share it with probably this weekend, and I'll show how I'm doing load balancing, and also it's doing caching for my websites. So Varnish is a cache. It's a reverse cache for like web serving. It's extremely fast, caches in memory, but it's also can do load balancing. So I have it probe this, which is my web server, and if it sees any errors, it will send it over here. If it sees, you can set it, but I have it set so if it sees 3 errors within 5 tries, it will fall back to this one. And I have it probe it once every 5 seconds, so you can do the math on that. I think it takes 15 seconds for it to fix an error if it occurs. So everything comes in through Varnish. It gets routed to my web server. If this is down, it gets routed to here. Now, this is not running the same Drupal install as this. This is running Drupal with MySQL as the database in the background. This is not running. This is running MySQL, but it's for my monitoring setup, which is in a different video, and it's also for slave databases, which I'm going to talk about at the second half of this video. So, what this is doing is if this fails over to here, this has a static version of my websites up, which I'm building with the program wget. It's just a program you can find on pretty much any Unix box. And what it does is it browses like an HTTP page, and it will download all the content as HTML. So all I need to do is be able to serve static content. So say someone goes on here and somehow this thing is ripped out and destroyed somehow. Well, I can still serve that static content. It'll automatically switch to here, and it'll serve up the HTML pages. They won't be able to say add posts or mess with the settings on the website, but they'll still be able to browse around. So I was able to do this with just a simple script, which I'll be sharing, and with Varnish. So now let me show you it in action. So this is, over in this terminal is my web server. What I'm going to do, let's do this. So my main web serving application is Nginx. I'm going to stop my Nginx service. Actually, before I do that, let me go over here. So this is my website. You can tell that it's the dynamic version because you'll see this view and edit because I'm an administrator logged in right now. So I'm sending a cookie. It's reading the cookie on my web server. Actually, it's sending that information to the database and showing that I'm an administrator. Show me the version that can edit it. Right? If I'm on a static version, it's not going to even care that I'm sending it a cookie back. It's not going to change it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kill the server. So it stopped it, right? Stopping Nginx. Sorry it's blurry, if it's blurry, by the way. So now if I go here, you'll see that if I click around, service unavailable. Varnish is erroring because it can't hit the database. I mean, it can't hit the web server in the back. Now let's try it again. You can see now it's working, but if you notice there's no view and edit up here. That's because this is a static version of the site. For example, if I click on, let's go to this. If I click on here and say click reply, you can see that I can't reply because this is a static version of the site. It doesn't have that part indexed, and that's all PHP. It's not going to run that. This is all HTML. So now I'm going to start my Nginx server again. And you'll see that within a few moments, Varnish is going to probe the web server, see that it's back up, and send traffic back to it. So now I click here, it's still not working. It takes, I'd say, about 15 seconds. Now you'll see that, well, that was like 5. But you'll see that now it's working. View edit is back. This is now the dynamic version of the site. If you heard that bell earlier, that was actually my Chinga. Look, you can see there was an error here. but it's already gone because it saw it. So you can see in my email, I got an email that the Nginx server was down. It's critical, and then it says it's okay. So if you see my monitoring video, I'll show you how to set that up. But yeah, I have it in monitor, so I'll say if any of my websites are down, I'll see at what level is it down. Is it at the varnish level? Is it at the DNS level? Is it at the Nginx level? And even while say the Nginx level dies, I'll still get the static page. Yeah. So, and this is all, this is all just basic free programs open source programs you can use. So this is my Achinga. There's another video on Achinga specifically, but that is my backup system. I'm going to share my wget script I'm using. Specifically, I had to do a little bit of messing around with some of the PHP, because sometimes you'll put like a question mark and then some information after the PHP to run certain stuff, but that's not part of the file name, so you got to delete anything after the question mark. So I'll just share that script. Anyway, that's that. So that is basically my static version of my site ready to go. Now I'm going to show my backup system. So let me go back here. What I have is I have my web server here, which is running, has the files that it's serving up, and it has the database. So usually when you back up a site, you want to back up those files and you want to back up the database. Well, backing up the files, all I do is I rsync it here, and I'll share that eventually how I did that. To set up rsync using SSH is what I'm doing. You need to mess around with public keys and stuff. It's not that hard, but yeah, I have it. You can find tutorials online, but I'll share what I have. I have it rsync the files here, and here I have snapshots run, so I'll show that as well. But that's for the files. For the database, I have this running a database, but I also have the netbook running the Achinga database, the MySQL database that's Achinga is running on. I also have it running as a slave to the Drupal database on here. So the Drupal database is copied. Anytime there's a change here, this one will very quickly read that change and change itself here. So that's what I have set up right now. And why you do that is this slave I can now use for dumps. I can take that database, I can pause the writing to it so I get a clean copy, and I can dump it out. Then I can start the writing to that database again. The reason you don't want to do it on the main web server is because you can't really pause if you have a traffic, you don't want to pause your MySQL instance, because it'll just screw people up. The site will stop working. The functionality will be all messed up. So what you can do is you can pause the slave, because you don't care if it gets paused. Yeah, and this basically, if you don't pause it, the problem with not pausing is you're going to get a malformed. If there's a write at the time of your dump, there's going to be malformed rows. So you don't want that to happen, number one, and you don't want to have to pause your database. So if on a slave, you don't care if you pause it when it's a clean system, like all the writes are done, and it'll dump it out, and then it'll restart the SQL thread. So I'm going to show my thread for the SQL dump, and I might show how to set up a MySQL slave, though I haven't actually documented that myself yet. So that's how I'm doing the database, and now I'll explain the file. So this is rsynced with SSH. And let me just show FreeNAS. So the clever thing I'm doing with that, though, is I have it rsync, so it's not taking a lot of space, because if there's no changes, it's not going to change any of the files. So it's a low network bandwidth, number one. Number two, it's not writing over the old files, so it's not like rewriting every single time. It's just writing any changes. But if files are deleted, they are deleted from the system. But what I'm taking advantage of are ZFS snapshots. So in FreeNAS, you can have it set. Oh, okay. Let me explain it first. I have everything rsynced to an active volume, and you can create a volume under a Z pool. So this is a really good way to do this, because this volume I can snapshot just this volume. I can snapshot and revert it without messing with the rest of my Z pool. So eventually, what I'm going to do is create a bunch of these for different things, so I can go back and forth with them and not mess up my actual Z pool. So yeah, I have it set up to create a snapshot every day. So every day I rsync the files, number one. Number two, I have ZFS take a snapshot of those files. So now, even though if it deletes old files, I can still revert back to them by just cloning that day. So I have it saved for 2 weeks back. So any day in the last 2 weeks, I can revert back to that day and grab the data from that, even if that data was deleted. So that's the awesome part of just using all these open source technologies, specifically ZFS snapshotting and rsync, is I have a copy of every single day's, and it's not taking any extra space, except for the snapshot does grow if you delete what's on the snapshot. But it's worth it in the end because you get a backup of every day, a clean backup, and I also put my databases on there. But yeah, so that's basically it. I'm going to share my wget script. I'm going to possibly share how to set up a slave, though I haven't documented that myself yet. I'm going to share my varnish config for failover, and I will share my MySQL dump script as well. So that's pretty much it. This is how you can create a very redundant web servering system without spending any extra money. It's just using the fact that I have 3 servers ready, like my router and then 2 other servers, and taking advantage of just really simple features of them and putting them all together. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys later.